Okay, hi guys, hi to everyone. Let's start today's lecture. Today we have lecture number 4. So let's share my screen. Can you see and hear me? Can you see my screen and hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So today we have to continue learning about the front-end side of development of the web pages. And for week number 4, we have to start learning the Angular. About the Angular, we have to know that this is a framework for creating web pages. So to improve the development speed of the front-end side, such like libraries or frameworks was created. One of them is Angular. So let's move to our folder. So week number 4 and group number 2. Okay. Where is the browser? Let's open the browser. So Angular. So if you type the Angular on the web on the address bar, you will get at the first option the official site of the Angular, which consists of the documentation and all the data that you can learn about this library, about this framework. So before learning the Angular, we have to discuss about the language. So can you turn off your microphones? Okay. Okay, before learning the Angular framework, we have to discuss about the language that is inside of this framework. Inside of this framework, we will use the language, not JavaScript. It's a TypeScript. So TypeScript is also the same thing, almost the same thing as a JavaScript. It's just a extension. We can say that extension for the JavaScript. Extension for what? For instance, if you create a, for instance, file called for instance, 1JS, let that be 1JS, and we know that about these variables, let a equals to 1, let b equals to 2, okay, like 1, and log a equals to b. If you run this code, it says true. Even we have here string. So we have here 1 as a number. Here we have the 1 as a string. But using the 2 times of this equal sign, it gives true because it will just compare the contents, so the values of that 2 variables. If you put 3 times, it says false because we have here 2 checks. Before the value, it should check the data type of the 2 variables. So the left-hand side will have the number, on the right-hand side will have the string. That's why it gives false. So this is the first example, and let's move on. And for instance, log for checking 0 equals to empty string. If you run it, it will also give the true. So on the left-hand side, we have the number. On the right-hand side, we have the string. But the value for the comparison of these 2 variables gives us true. The same thing for the empty list, which is also true. So if it's true, this part, which is false, which is also should be true. For instance, here we have empty string, which is also true. So we have different type of objects, different type of data values, but the comparison gives us to true. For instance, let's create a function called multiply for the 2 numbers. So the returning part return a multiplied by 2, a multiplied by b. So if you run this code, multiply for the 2 and 4, it will give you number 8. This is okay. What if I am sending here some string here as a 2? It will also multiply by 8. What I am changing if it like a plus sign. For the multiplication, it will try to add like a mathematical operation. That's why it will try to convert our string to the number. If I am changing to it as a sum and passing the, for instance, only 2, it will give us 6. It's okay. What I am sending, if it's a sum string, it says 24. Why 24? Because 2 is as a string, where we pass it as a string, and plus sign plus 4, in our case, like 2 plus 4. This expression will be executed, and this expression says we have string here, and plus sign acts as the concatenation of 2 strings, neither mathematical operation of the sum. Why? Because we have here a string. And that's why it gives us to 24 as a concatenation. This part was converted to the string and added to the left part and just merged it, and we had such like a result. Which is this, all the things inside of the JavaScript is a little bit confusing and a little bit misunderstandable between the developers. For instance, if we have the development group of from the several people, and inside of the application we have the thousands of lines of code. In such projects, such like misunderstandings, such like operations can be difficult to control the correctness of the comparisons, correctness of the operations, and that's why for such reasons and for other reasons was created a TypeScript, which is the extension for the JavaScript. TypeScript, it's an extension, which means it should go after the JavaScript. It means if you if you have question, what should be at first, learning the TypeScript or JavaScript, definitely it should be at first the JavaScript. That's why in the previous lecture we learned about it. And today we have to discuss and we have to understand what is a TypeScript, which is the extension for the JavaScript. So for the TypeScript file, you have to create a file called name of the file, and extension should be TS, neither the GS for the JavaScript. So the TS, which stands for the TypeScript file, and inside of this file you can immediately use your, for instance, JavaScript code also. JavaScript.also, because we have extension as a JavaScript. But inside of the TypeScript, we have different type of the rules. So if you go to the book and if you go to the basic types. So what is the TypeScript? TypeScript, it's just an extension for the JavaScript that will give you some rules to fix these problems. When we are creating some variables, when we are creating some functions, and so on. For instance, if you want to create a variable, let it be number. If it's a JavaScript, so let number equals to 2, number equals to hello. We know that in JavaScript we have to dynamically type it. Any variable will be as an object extension for the extends from the object. So right here, number variable will be as a type number, and after that here it will become as a string. Why? Because the value is string and it should change data type as a string. But inside of the inside of the TypeScript, when you are creating a new variable, you have to set the data type. So we are saying that let number, it's just a creation that we know before. The num, it's the name of the variable, and the syntax is here. Here you have have to put colon and the data type. And after that, if you put number 2, it's okay. If you put number equals to hello, it says string is not assignable to type number, which means num, it's a type of number, as we discussed it, as we created here. But hello cannot be assigned to this value. Okay, let's compile this code. Why we are saying as a compiler? Because we have JavaScript and JavaScript has an interpreter. So when we are writing code inside of the TypeScript, you have to convert it to the JavaScript to run on the browser, because browser cannot understand your TypeScript code. Because TypeScript was created for developers to write easily code and manage your code more accurately. And for running your code on the web page, you have to convert it. You have to compile it to the JavaScript. That's why to compile this file to the JavaScript, you have to install 2 more things. One of them is, I think you already installed the npm to your laptops, npm-v and node-v, which are the core rules, library. So the core packages you have to install to work with the JavaScript and Angular. So the node, I have the such like a version. I think this is a little bit older. So now I think we have the newer versions like 12 or 12 and 13 and so on. So the npm, I have such like a version. I think if you have the greater version than inside of my computer, it will be greater. Okay. After that, to compile the TypeScript, you have to install the package like npm install -g TypeScript. npm install means I want to install the node package manager like TypeScript library. -g means globally. Globally means inside of my operating system. It means inside of any location of the terminal, I can use the commands of this library. So the commands of this library called tsc. tsc is a command for compiling the files such like a 2ts. tsc is a short version. After installing this package, you will have such like a option, such like a command to run your ts files. If you run this code, and here will be appear the file, the name should be the same, appear the file like a GS file. And as you can see here, this type was converted to this type. And if you run it like this, if you run again to compile it, it says error. It says string is not assignable to the number. But if we have the JavaScript code, it says error, but it will immediately convert it. But in JavaScript, we don't have any errors because we can do such like assigning the values. So the number can be equals to 2 and number can be equals to hello. For JavaScript, it's not a problem. But in TypeScript, it says this is a not problem. This is a error for you because you created the number as a non-value as a number, but assigning a value string. That's why such like errors can be found inside of the TypeScript, and TypeScript gives you ability to control your variables more accurately among the other developers and so on. The same thing, for instance, for the messages, for the other data types like string. Message equals to I don't know, message 1 or hello. If you run this code, this file was generated from the compiling of this file, and this file can be used on the web page to work with them. So let's create a function as we discussed before, some function, which will get two variables, a and b. Return a plus b, as we discussed here. And we want to call this function using the two functions, two variables. So let's compile it. And we have such like a code also acceptable because it's just a simple JavaScript code. And as you can see here, we have this function. And if you run this JS code, pay attention that to compile it, I'm using the command tsc, this file. And after compiling, it generates a file 2.js, and 2.js I'm running with the node command. If you run it, it will give the 6, which means correct, which means 2 plus 4, which is equals to 6. And if you run if you run it here like this, if you run it, it's also as always, as in the previous examples, it gives a 24. But in our TS file, in our TypeScript file, what we can do? We can do such like rules. Rules like the a number, a parameter, a argument should be number. B also should be number. So which means a and b, they have to be numbers. So if you try to compile this file again, it says argument type of string, it links to the number 2, is not assignable to parameter of the number type. So that's why here we have the number a, and here we are passing the number 2 as a string. That's why it says error. And if you run it like this, just compiling the file, it will go without any errors, and you can run your code and it will give the ability to run it. As you can see here, we are passing the more optional rules for the developers to understand which parameters should they pass to that functions to work properly. For instance, if you have, let it be, let's see, equals to a plus b, and somehow inside of the function, someone writes a wrong code, which will return the string. For instance, if you run this code, it will compile perfectly because we don't have any instructions here. If you run this code, it will return the hello, which is not correct, because some should return the number. For this reason, you can put after the parentheses, after the parameters, you can put the data type for the returning part. After adding this part, as you can see here, we have the error here. String is not assignable to the number, which means this string cannot be returned because the number returning part set it as a number. If you compare it with just a simple C++ function, for instance, sum integer a, integer b, returning it a plus b, we have almost the same thing. So integer, it's a returning part. Here we have the number. So integer a, integer b, we have number a, number b, and we have such like a rules as in the C++ inside of the TypeScript. So the TypeScript gives you such like a ability over the JavaScript. So that's why here we have the error. If you run this code, you will get the error like hello cannot be returned because it's a number. It should be number. So that's why you have to put here number C. And if you run it, it will compile without anything. And if you run it, it will return the number 6. So I think this is clear. So what can do the TypeScript and which useful options we have using inside of the TypeScript? You can learn about it inside the documentation. For instance, here we have the Boolean type. The syntax for creation any variable is let, the name of the variable, columns, and data type. And if you have the initial values, you will have the initial values immediately, like this. If you don't have, you can write like this, and after creating a variable, and after that initialize assigning the value. So the numbers, so the decimal and so on, all of the things should be inside of the number. So the create string builder, sorry, just a second. Okay, let's continue. We might have such like string builders. About this we already discussed, which is the back quotas, and inside of the back quotas you can write such like syntaxes. So the $sign and curly brackets inside it, you put the name of the variable which you already declared. So here I have the name, and this name should be put it over this page. So the arrays, so for creating the arrays, so the name of the array, for instance, number of arrays. So the number and array equals to the initializing value. The same thing for the second way, which is also the same thing, the array of numbers, number of arrays. They are almost the same. So the syntax is a little bit different, but they will do the same thing. So about the tuples, you can create a tuple, for instance, using the data types. And after that, if you put the wrong data type here, for the first argument should be the strings, but here you are pressing the number, it should show the error. So most basically, the TypeScript will try to give you the data type restrictions if you have the wrong one. And one of the other things which the TypeScript will give you useful things for creating classes and working with the object-oriented paradigms. For instance, for creating a class, for implementing the functions, for implementing the inheritance, and so on. In such cases, TypeScript will give you more abilities. For instance, here we have the enumerations. For instance, enumeration, we have the free values here, and you can create, after creating an enumeration, you can create your own value. For instance, let's see the data type, which is not string, not boolean. It should be the color, and the initializing value color green. Like this, you can put the values by yourself if it's necessary for you, and all other things. Okay, I think the purpose of the goal of the TypeScript, I think it is clear. Okay, after learning the TypeScript, why we are trying to understand what is the TypeScript? Because inside of the AngularJS, AngularJS is a library. Inside of the Angular framework, we will work in the language TypeScript. That's why we have to understand what is the TypeScript and what is the JavaScript, and what for. The reason of the creation of the TypeScript is to just give the number of advantages over the JavaScript, so the extension for the JavaScript. But as you can see here at the end, to run your code, to run your TypeScript code on the browser, you have to compile it to the JavaScript as like this. Okay, I think this is clear, and for now, it's time to turn back to the Angular. So we'll go back here. So it's time to, sorry. So let's go to the examples G2. So we have to create a folder called TypeScript examples. Move these files to there. GS. Move to. Okay. Okay. It's time to start learning the Angular. So the Angular, it's just a framework for the development of the front-end side. If you go to the docs folder, and if you go to the feature folder, and if you change the menus, you can see that the web page, so this tab is not loading, so they're not reloading if I'm changing the content of the page. It means this application, so that these pages was created using a single page applications. So the single page applications. So the single page applications, they can be the creation of the single page applications will give you ability using the, for instance, Angular, for using the React, for using the Vue.js. You can create such like applications. Single page applications, it's just a one page application. When I'm changing the content, it will just change the content and it, in some cases, URL also, but without any refreshing. Without any refreshing, you can see the different pages and different resources on the page. Such like applications called the single page applications. If you click to the block button, you can see that it will load the new application. It will load the new page, and after that, the block will be loaded. For other things, all of the features, documents, resources, and events, they are located inside of the one application. That's why without any refreshes, you can see the changes of the application. Such like application can be created using our libraries and packages. So the libraries and frameworks. So for creating a such like application, one of them is Angular. So inside of the Angular documentation, if you start from the introduction, we have to understand what is Angular. Well, I think this is clear that Angular is an application designed for the framework for the development of the creation of the single page apps. As you can see here, single page apps. Single page apps means without any refreshing, you can change the results of the page. Okay, to work with the Angular, you have to install the needed libraries, packages to work with them. If you go to the setup section here, you will have the prerequisites. And about this, we already know about HTML, CSS, JavaScript. We have the 3 weeks learning these 3 types of the sections of the front-end development. After that, knowledge of the TypeScript, which is also helpfully, but not required, which means you can immediately concurrently learn the TypeScript inside of the Angular, but it's recommended to see the basics of the TypeScript inside of the documentation to understand what is the TypeScript and what is the JavaScript. And that's it. So this is a requirement for starting working with the Angular. And after that, you have to install the Node.js. We already know about it. Node.js, we already installed inside of the application, inside of the operating system. So after that, you have to install the Node package manager, which is npm. You can check the installed version of the npm, like npm-v, and if you have some version, it is okay. Okay, after that, you can install the Angular CLI, Angular command line, using this command: npm install -g Angular CLI. -g, you already know about it. -g means globally install the Angular CLI. And after that, you will have after installing this package, you will have the command called the ng. If you click the ng and hit the enter, it will show all the options which can be used using this ng command. For instance, ng new creates a new workspace and initialize the Angular app. ng serve builds and serves the application and rebuild the changes, and all other things that can be for the generating the other things and so on. Okay, after this installation, you will have the such like option. After installing this command, you will have immediately you will have ability to create immediately the first your app. For instance, ng new, which is a option, which is a command for creating a new app. Let's create an application. Name of the application should be the demo. If you click the enter, it will ask from you several questions. First of them is, would you like to add the Angular routing? So about the routing, we will discuss in the next lecture. That's why for today, let's add it, but we can skip the explanation of that section. We'll discuss it in the next lecture because today we have to understand the basics of the Angular. That's why let's put yes, but the explanation should be would be in the next week. Okay, the next question: which style sheet format would you like to use? We have different types. We have different options. For instance, CSS, SCSS, Sass-less, Stylus. We know about only CSS, but about the other extensions. So like TypeScript, which is extension for the JavaScript, we have the other things for the extensions for the CSS. For instance, CSS we know, and SCSS is the extension for the CSS, which will give you ability to create variables and other very useful things to improve the development of the CSS language part. And Sass-less, and they also will be this helpful, and you can learn about it at your home. That's why today we will choose the CSS and just hit the enter. And after that, the command ng command will create for you a empty project with all necessary files and all configurations and all the libraries that will be useful for running your program, running the empty program that was created from this command. Just wait for a while these packages was installed. And after that, we'll start learning, we'll start opening and try to learning the contents of that files. Okay, it was successfully installed. It says packages successfully installed. So after that, you can see that the folder will have the demo. Go inside of this folder and open this folder inside of your editor. Starting from the Angular, from the today's lecture, it's recommended to use a WebStorm to use to work inside of the application Angular. But if you have the limited resources on your laptop, you can also use the Visual Studio Code. But in the lectures, I will show you examples from the WebStorm, but environment it doesn't matter. Okay, the WebStorm, I want to open this folder, the current folder. That's why I'm putting here $. Okay, we'll start the WebStorm for new created project. Let's open it and wait for the initial indexing. So it will index all the packages that was installed from for us. After indexing, we can continue learning the new things. Wait for a minute. Wait for a minute. Okay, it finished indexing, and you can open the folder demo, which is a root folder, and let's discuss the main files and main folders. The first folder, which is should be as which should store the configuration for the ES6 and ES5, and that's why this folder will be just as the optional one. The changes will not be executed inside of this folder. That's why we will just discuss about it a little bit later. The next folder, which is a node modules, that folder, which is just store the all installed libraries. If you open it, you will see the all installed libraries for this application. As you can see here, we have so many libraries which was installed here. That's why inside of the terminal it says packages installed successfully, and it means this packages was installed successfully inside of the node models. So the next folder, which is called SRC, stands for the source. which is the root folder for our source code, which means if I'm creating a new component, I have to add this component inside of this folder, and all the changes, all the source codes will be located inside of this folder. So let's see the other configs. So here we have the all other configuration files, which was created for us. So the editing configuration, some the indenting sizes and so on. Git ignore file, which is also helpful. So Angular, the information about the Angular, so configuration of the Angular application. So what else? One of the main files here is package.json, which will store all the dependencies, libraries, and the versions of that dependencies. For instance, here we have the different libraries, and on the right side we have the dependencies. All these libraries was installed and located inside of this folder. So the node models folder will hold all the libraries that was listed inside of this package.json. We have two sections, dependencies and dev dependencies. As you can expect it, dev dependencies, it's a development mode dependencies, while development mode will use libraries, and those libraries will be skipped in the production mode. And that's why we have two sections here. But inside of the node models, we'll have all the libraries from here and from here to run your code. Okay, what else? Package log will store all the currently installed versions. For instance, this library currently installed this section, this version. For the next library, installed this version, and that's it. Package log also will be the helpful file when we have the problems with the versions of the libraries. So the README file is just messaging, some news, and some just explanation, description of the program. So here we have the TS files, TS configuration files, which will configure your TS lint, which is a highlighting your code, and working with the configuration, which folders, which files should be checked for the ES5, ES6 syntaxes. This configuration located on these files. And that's it. They are the main files for your application. And go into the folder of SRC. If you open this folder, we have here our main files and main folders to our application. So let's start from this file is icon, it is okay. Let's start from the index.html file. So we know about from today's lecture, we know about the index.html file, which is the root file, should be should be as a root file for any other application. So we have here document type, HTML head and body. But one more thing here is, which is not regular for us, which is app root. App root, it's just a new directive. We know that inside of the HTML, we have to use the tags like h1, for instance, p or image, which was already created inside of the HTML tags. But in our file, we see that we have the new tag called app root. What it is, we'll discuss a little bit later. So this file is just the entering point. So the entering point file, file for our single page application. So the next thing is the main TS file, which will run our application. So just a configuration. We will not change this file for this course, which is just a configuration for our application, which will run this app model class, which will show a little bit later. So the polyfill styles, which is a globally style file, which can be used if you have the globally changed styles to whole of the page. You can write styles here. And here we have the test file. This file can be also skipped for now because it's not important. And other folders, the environment folder, which is also hold the variables for the development and for the production mode. production mode variables, which is also we skip it for now. Okay, assets, which is for now, which is empty folder. It's just a folder which will hold the static files. It might be images and so on. Static files, if you have, you can hold them inside of this folder assets. And here we have the core of our application, which is the app folder. If you open this app folder, we have different files. You can see immediately the connection and the connection between these 4 files. These 4 files starts from the name of these 4 files, starts from the app component, CSS app component, HTML app component TS. This third file, it's just for the testing mode. That's why we will skip this file for today, and we'll talk about these 3 files: CSS, HTML, and TS file. App component CSS. If you open it, it's an empty file. App component HTML, which is created for you by the initializing point. We'll discuss about it also. And app component TS file. About TS, we know it's a TypeScript file. And inside of this file, we have the class called app component. So when you create a new application of Angular, Angular will create immediately one component for you. This component called app component. So the Angular consists of many components. You can create your own component and connect with the others and so on. But at the initial point, if you create a new application using the ng new, it will create for you an app component as the initial one. So this app component, as you can see here, we have the app root. Can you remember what it is? If you open the index.html, we have here app root. This app root, it's just a directive of this component. When we create this component, so as you can see here, we have the core. Inside of the core, we imported the directive, so the decorator called component. What is a decorator? Decorator means if something starts from this sign, it means this class works as a decorator. Inside of the decorator, we will have the different configurations. We have here only 3 configurations. First one is selector. A selector means the name of the tag. As you can see here, we have the app root, and this app root goes from here. This app root is the name of the tag that was created for you. So the next one is template URL. Template URL means for this component, this should be connected with this HTML file, which is here. App component HTML, this file was connected. And last thing, style URLs. Style URLs connect with this CSS file here, which is empty here. Why we have the list? Because we might have different CSS files for one component, and in that case, you can list them like this over here if you have the different ones. So this is empty. So we can say that this is an empty application, an empty component without anything. And export class app component, it's just a class with the only one property, which is title equals to demo. Demo is just the name of the application. It's just was created for you by the comment for the ng new. Okay, I think you can understand these 3 files, CSS, HTML, and TS files. They are connected with each other, and they are acts as one component. And here we have the 2 more files. So one of them is app model. App model also will be as the configuration of your application. As you can see here, it will import this app component from this file. This app component class was imported here and is declared here. Inside of the app model, you have to declare all created components. If you create a new component, if you create a new component inside of your application, you have to declare it over here. For instance, ASD component. If you create such like a component, you have to declare over here to know that Angular project, Angular framework should know all the created components. For now, we have only one component that was added for us automatically from the command. So this component added inside of the declarations. So inside of the imports, we have the configurations also. So the browser model, which is also as the initial part of the configuration. And the next thing, it's a routing model, which will be discussed in the next lecture about the routings. And all other imports can be used inside of this import file. So the bootstrap, it's just running your component. So this model will run. After running this model, it will go to your component as the initial one, as the entry point. It will run your code inside of this component. This component will render this file, these styles, and using this tag. Inside of the route model, for this file, we'll go back in next lecture and we'll discuss it about it a little bit later. Okay, I think this is clear. So these four files will link to the one component. This is a main configuration. As you can see here, we have the class called app model with such like configurations, and this model will be run over here. As you can remember, inside of the main TS, this app model was imported. As you can see here, app model, this model imported, and bootstrap model. Bootstrap means it will start from that class. When we are running our application, Angular application, it will go inside of this model and it will try to understand which components we have. And Bootstrap starts immediately from this component and it will render this file on the web page. So let's try to run our code. To run our application, you have to be inside of the main, so the root folder. Root folder means inside of the demo folder. As you can see here, we have the inside of the demo folder. So inside of this folder, you have to run ngserve command. ngserve means you want to run your application. We have here two options. ngserve, if you run only ngserve, it will just compile it and run it. ngserve -- open means it will compile it and immediately open the browser. It depends on you. You can run ngserve separately and open by yourself your browser. It doesn't matter. So what's going on now? So ngserve means it will go to your application here and will compile all the files to the JavaScript. So as you know, from the inside of the Angular, we have the TypeScript files, and all those files should be converted to the JavaScript. As you can see here, main.js, polyfile.js. So these all TS files should be compiled to the JavaScript. Why? Because browser can understand only JavaScript code. Okay, so it says successfully compiled, and it's just a running program. That's why it says the Angular Live Development Server is listening to port 4200. If you open that folder 4200, and that's it. You can see the demo page of the web page, the new created application. Here I have this page located inside of this file. So for instance, these things was added for you from the guys from the Angular development group. So this is just links to the Angular documentation and so on. All other things, for instance, for creating a new things in the comments. If you don't know, for the new developers, this will be helpful. Okay, we already implemented and installed our first application. As you can see here, demo app is running. It's just a message from this file. So we know about these three sections: CSS, HTML, and TS file. TS file, our JavaScript file, we can say, and HTML, it's HTML, and CSS, which is a style sheet file. So let's copy this CSS, all the CSS which was added to the HTML, copy this one and put it inside of the CSS file and save it. As you can see, when I'm saving when I'm changing anything inside of these files, for instance, when I'm changing something and hitting the Control S or Command S, it will recompile all the files. It will check and recompile all the files for the errors. For instance, if you open the TS file and if you remove this bracket, if you save it, it will say that we have the error that inside of this file we have the on the 11th line we have the such like a error. Such like a changes, such like a recompiling will be there for any changes inside of your file. Like in the previous lecture, we showed about the live server inside of the Visual Studio Code, and this live server inside of the Angular application will be from the box, and that's it. If you put it again and save it, it will recompile, and it says the compiled successfully. If you reload this file, this will show. So let's see the changes. So we have here terminal. Inside of the terminal, we have some comments. We know that this terminal was marked up here inside of the HTML file, and we know. So let's try to understand where is this terminal. So here I have the terminal and all the things inside it. So the terminal class. Let's find the terminal class inside of the CSS, and let's change the value of the terminal to the red. And as you can see here, all changes will be appeared without any refreshes of the web page. If I am changing something, and saving this file, and after that it will immediately reload, not reload, it will just show the difference, show the changes of my code on the web page. As you can see here, without any refreshes. For instance, it will just refresh and show the error changes of my changes of the CSS file. So if you click to these files, to these buttons, it will change the values of these buttons, but the page is not reloaded. As you can see here, page is not reloaded because it's a single page application. Why single page application? You can understand for now, because we have only one page, which is the index HTML, and all other things should be happening inside it without any refreshes, without anything. That's why it's called a single page application. We have only one HTML file, which will load all other things. For instance, this file, this HTML file covered with this root app root selector, and inside of the index file we render this app root, and that's it. Okay. For now, let's remove all the things over here, all the things, because we don't need this anymore. All these things. Let's remove this CSS also, and we have empty page here. Router outlet, about it we'll discuss in the next lecture. That's why let's leave it on our page. So h1, hello. Let's see the change. Okay, we have h1 on our page. We have h1 on our page, and let's h1 add color as a red. Okay, it works. Okay, what we can do inside of the TS files, HTML and CSS files. We know about these three files for the one component. So for one component, we have such like a configurations. About configurations, I think it's clear. So we have one class called app component, which was added to our model here, and this is the root model. So the bootstrap action. And inside of our class, inside of our app component class, we have one property, which is the title. So inside of HTML file, we have for Angular, we have such like a syntax. It's called using it two curly brackets, opening and closing. And inside it, you can write the JavaScript code. For instance, 1 + 1, which is mathematically equals to 2. As you can see here, we have the 2. So the 2 multiplied by 10. And as you can see here, inside of these curly brackets, 2 times curly brackets, we can write our JavaScript code. JavaScript, it's a ability of it's a template of the Angular, and it is given this section, these files, all these files, free files will be compiled. So after changing, as you can see here, if I'm running like this, after that it will change anything and render our code on the page. So what we can do inside of these curly brackets, 2 times, pay attention that we have the 2 times curly brackets. We have one parameter, so the one property inside of the class title. We can just render it. As you can see here, title can be rendered over here. And hello demo. Value of the title is here. If you change it, you can see the change immediately. If I am changing any variable inside of this class, for instance, it might be not only title, we might have the different other values. If I'm changing the value of this, of these variables, the changes will be immediately over here. Okay. So let's create another variable. Let's create a variable called number. The data type should be number. And that's it. So, as we know from the TypeScript, we can create such like a variable. So the number, so let it be just num. Num equals to number. And we can immediately assign a value, for instance, 20. Let's create and open and show the content of the num. As you can see here, we have the 20. But it's not recommended to initialize the values inside of the when we are declaring the variables. For instance, for the primitive data types, so for primitive it's a numbers, boolean, string, and so on. For those data types, it's recommended to initialize it inside of the constructor. What does it mean, constructor? We have here in any class, when we have the any class, we have the constructor for that class. For instance, if you write log constructor method running, if you open the console, you can see that the constructor method is running. When this class is created, when the object of this class created, so this constructor will be run. So for those type primitive data types, the initializing part for the assigning part should be, and recommended, do it inside of the constructor. So how can we get access to this number? To that, we have to use this keyword, this num equals to 20. And this is the recommended way for the primitive data types. And as you can see, we have the same result. For instance, you can let it be multiplied by 3 if you have such like a task. And that's it. For the string, the same thing. For instance, message string, you can immediately assign, for instance, message one, for instance, immediately assign it. It will work also. For instance, let it be message. It will work also. As you can see here, it will work. But it's recommended to assign the values, as you can see here, that TS line says this primitive data types should be initialized inside of the constructor. So that this message equals to this value. And here we have just declaration that we have such like a variable. And such like rules should be, such like a recommendation should be only for the primitive data types. Again, primitive data types, they are the numbers, strings, booleans, and so on, except the objects. If you have object, you can immediately create also inside of the, while you are declaring, but it's also recommended to initialize it inside of the constructor. Okay, so the message, it is clear. So what else? So the numbers. So array. We want to create an array of numbers. Array of numbers, and let's immediately show the initializing part. So numbers, they are the number of integers in our case, array, and equals to this array. But also you can do it by yourself here, numbers, and this part can be also over here. Like this. Okay, and after that, how can we show the numbers? If you put it like numbers, the output should be like this. Output should be like this, because what it tries to do is from this list of numbers, which is the array, it will just convert it to the string, and the string might be like this. If you go to the elements, as you can see here, we have the uproot. Inside it, we have the HP, paragraphs, and this was created from the list as a string. So for showing them separately, we have options. We have ability inside of the Angular. So the time is okay. It's good. So to show the numbers one by one, let's create a UL list. What is a UL list? We already know. So sorry. For instance, we might have such like a list, and inside of this we want to show the numbers from this array, from the numbers array. For that, if we have the sum array of anything, it might be numbers, it might be objects, it might be string, it doesn't matter. If you have the list of something, you can loop over this list using the directive called ng_for. ng_for, it's a syntax for the Angular. Pay attention that it should be started from the asterisk here, because it's a syntax. It says ng_for is a directive for creating a loop over any array. So how can we, for instance, if you have here 1, 2, 3, if you have 1, 2, 3, you can create a for integer or let I of a, and console log I. And as you can see, for any list, we can write such like a for loop. About it you already discussed and already learned from previous lecture. So let I of a. So the same thing here. We want to create a let number of numbers. Numbers is a list from this our class. Numbers list from our class. We want to loop over these numbers, and each number will be in our case it's a number as a like this variable. And after that, inside of li, we want to print out number itself, each number, these numbers. And if you save it, and you can see the result 2, 4, and 5, which was over here. If you have 6, one more element, you can see that it was dynamically increased, because we are using here ng_for. It doesn't matter how many elements we might have inside of the numbers. It will show one by one each value. Okay, I think this is clear. So let's try to create another thing. For instance, list of students. So we know that the numbers can have each element of the numbers, it's a data type number. But each element of the students array will be anything. It might be object. It might be any object. That's why inside of the TypeScript we have the new data type called any. Any means it might be any object. For instance, here we have the number, here we have the string, here we have the numbers, a list of numbers, here we have the list of anything. It means list of any object. So let's create these objects. So that this students equals to list of objects. So ID, let that be 20 BD something. Okay. So let's create a for loop here. So the students, which is empty list. Let students empty list. Okay. This student equals to 20 BD something. So the full name will be student1 and GPA will be 2, 3, 7. And here we might have the different, so let it be free number of, so the student1, student4, 5, student2 and 3. Here we have the 4, here we have the 3.5. Okay. What we did here, we created a student array with any data type, and inside of the student, we created that this array will have the list of objects. Each object will have the keyword, key and value for ID, full name, and GPA. And let's try to show those values on the web page. So UL, as we discussed before, li, so ng4 let student. You have to understand that these names are just the name of the variable. You can create let ASD of students. So on the right side, students, it's from this list. On the left side, what is this? It's just the name of the variable. It might be ASD, it might be student. For more understanding, let's do it like a student. And okay, student which will loop over the students. And let's show the student.id, which is over here, ID. And student.fullname. Student GPA. And save it. It will compile, and if you open the folder, if you open the page, you can see the results of the list of our students. So ID, student name, and GPA. So okay, as you can see here, if you have any list of objects, you can list over any objects. For instance, if you want to add the numbers, so the listing sequence numbers for this list, you can do it by adding the indexes. How can you add? For instance, here after writing the for loop expression, you can put the semicolons, and after that create one more variable. Let it be let I equals to index. This index is already created a variable for the ng for loop. Index will hold the indexes for each value. You can do it like I, like this. And as you can see here, index starts from 0 because we know that for any list inside of the JavaScript, inside of the TypeScript also, The index starts from the 0. That's why if you want to show the as not indexes but by the sequence, you can just plus add 1 here, and it will be perfectly change it to 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Okay, if you know, if you need, you can create such like an index after the for loop syntaxes over here inside of the ng for loop. Okay. Okay. So let's create one more. So time is okay. Time is okay. So let's create one more variable here. Variable will be there as a flag, and the data type will be the Boolean. This flag, at the first, it will be equals to true. So let's create an header for alert message. Let it be just like something inside of this h4, which is over here, alert message. So what we want to do is we created a variable called flag. The value is true. How can we use those Boolean values inside of the HTML is you can add some text on the web page depending on the variable values. For instance, if your variable value, in our case, flag is equals to true, I want to show, so not flag, let's say is message. So is message is message at the first time will be equals to false. Sorry, let it be true. So message one, our variable. Let's create. Let's show it here. The message one. So our message value should be inside of the here. So the message one showed here, and this message will be showed only if and only if this is message value equals to true. For that, you can add one more directive here called ng if. Ng if and name of the variable is message. What it should do, it says ng if it will get here the true value, for instance, true value here, it will show this message, this tag, this h4 tag. If it's a false, it will just remove this tag from this web page. And that's it. The task for the ng if is just to check what is the value of this section. It might be 1 equals to 1, which is equals to true. And in that case, it will show that 1 equals to 2, which is a false, and it will just disappear it. And the task for the ng if is like this. For the ng4, we know that it's looping for the inside of the loop, but inside of the ng if, it might be just is message value. Is message, it's a variable from the class, which is equals to true. That's why it will show the message. If you change it to the false, you can see that we remove this element from this from the message. So let's create one more button here. So the click me. For event handling, for clicking to the button, inside of the Angular, we have the such like outputs, such like a click events, and inside of this click event, you can write name of the function, but in our case we don't have any function, btn click function. That's why we have to create it. Let's create a function btn click. To check it, let's show some log here. Btn click it and just check it. So when I'm clicking to this button, it should show this message. As you can see here, we have this message and it works perfectly. And what I'm trying to do here, I want to, at the first, is message equals to false. When I'm clicking to the button, I want to change the message is message equals to true. It means when I'm clicking to this button, this message appears. Why? Because all the values that was created over here, if we have anywhere, it doesn't matter, inside of the event, inside of the constructor, it doesn't matter. If you have the changes for any data inside of these properties, if you have changes, and if those variables was used inside of the HTML, it means they will be checked again. If I'm changing the is message equals to true, Angular will understand that is message was used inside of the HTML in the ngIf directive, and it will check if the message is message equals to true, it will just show. It will just have to show this message on the web page. And as you can see here, the click message will show this message on the web page. If you click it again, it will just change it to the true and so on. For now, let's check it to the opposite side. This is message. What I'm trying to do here is when button was clicked, is message changed its value to the opposite side. This is opposite side. If it's a true, it means it becomes as a false. If it's a false, it becomes as a true. Let's try to do this. If you click it, it will show the message. If you click it again, it becomes as a false. That's why it will just disappear. And the same thing for the other things. So just a toggling button. If you click to do some button, it will turn on something. If you toggle it again, it will turn off. In such cases, you can do it like this. Okay. So the time is okay. So one more thing here, adding the input elements inside of the inside of the field set. So can we do it like this? Okay. Okay, field set, we have the input type here. And for the input type, I want to create a new variable called, about the input type, we already know. It's just the display where I can write something. Okay, I'm creating a new variable called display, which is data type is string. This display equals to empty string. This variable will be used inside of the input the input text field. Inside of the input text field, we have such like a directive called ngModel. ngModel directive can be used using the two data binding. In our case, we know that if I am changing is message inside of the TS file, it will automatically disappear or show the H4 element on the web page. The same thing for the input type elements. For instance, ngModel, here I want to connect it with the variable called display, which was created over here. The display variable, which is a string one, will be connected to this input data. So to work with these inputs, you have to configure the ngModel. ngModel is not known property for now. That's why we have to add one more configuration here. So open your app model file. Inside of the imports means we want to use a new library. We have to import the forms model. Forms model under the library called Angular Forms. This configuration should be added inside of the imports inside of the app model. And after that, you will have the chance to use this ngModel syntaxes for your program. So after that, you can write ng model display. So ng model should be covered with the parentheses, and out of the parentheses you have to be covered with the square brackets, which means two-way data binding as an input and as an output, which means here we have to put as a display. And if I'm changing the value of the display, as you can see here, we have empty input. If I'm setting some value here, for instance, hello in the display, and as you can see here, hello appears as the initial value inside of the input. As you can see here, I'm adding something, but hello was inside of the input as the initial value. Why? Because I'm setting the display as a hello as the initial value here, and inside of the HTML, I'm adding a display value as the ng model. Ng model means two-way data binding. Two-way data binding means if I'm changing the display here, it will immediately show this display the value inside of the input. If I'm changing here something, it means this value immediately will be inside of the display, inside of the display value. How can I see it? If you put here, for instance, some p-value here, and try to display the show the display value here. And as you can see here, ISD appears immediately over here. If you remove it, it will remove. If you write something, as you can see here inside of the input type, inside of the text input, if I'm writing something, this value immediately will be stored inside of the display value which was created over here. Why? Because we have here ng model. And you can see that this variable that it was changed, and the changes will be appeared over here. And inside of the constructor, it should be just an empty one, because without anything. And if I'm writing something, it means display value also will be the changed when I'm writing something inside of this input. And which means two-way data binding. From the TS file, I can change the value, and from the web page, I can change the value of the display variable. Okay, I think this is clear. After that, let's remove this one. After that, I want to add here one more button, add item. And click event here, add item function. Add item function we don't have yet, that's why let's create it. So let's console log this display value. So inside of this add item function, I'm just displaying the content of the value of the display variable. So here I have the function, so the button add item. I'm writing something and clicking to this button, and it says the value something. And hello, I'm adding something, and it says hello, which means inside of this button, I can get the results. I can get the value of the input. So what I'm trying to do here is let's create a items list, which is a string list, and this items, which is at the first, it should be the empty one, empty string. And inside of the HTML, I want to, using the UL, I want to add LIs. As you know, the ng4 let item in items, or not in, it's of items. In it's in the C++, so in Python. So of items. So of items, and I want to show the item itself. And let's add the, so item itself, let's task 1 and as an example, task 2. And here I have the task 1, task 2. Let's add indexes. So the let I equals to index. So the index and I plus 1 suggests the item. Suggesting paragraph as the item. Okay, we have such like tasks here, but at the initially the items should be the empty array. That's why I will remove it. And as you can see here, we don't have any items. So, and what I want to do is, when someone tries to write something and click to the add item button, inside of the add item, I want to get a value of the display and add it to our list. So these items to add to our list in JavaScript, we know that we have the function push, and I want to push the value of the display value, and that's it. So we know that items also link it over here. It means if items change it in any case, the HTML file should be also show the changes of that variable. So that's it. Let's try to task 1. Task 1, click to this button, and here we can see the result. Task 2, click button. Task 3, click button. So one more thing, we have to remove the content of the input after adding the something. So that's why after clicking and after adding the values, we want to just display becomes as an empty string. So task 1, add it, and as you can see here, task 2, add it, and as you can see here, but if you click just add button without anything, it will also add because we don't have any condition for the empty string. That's why let's add it. So if this display is not equal to empty one, in that case I want to do such like an expression. So if display is not equal to empty, I want to add it to the items, and display should be also clear. So if you click, for now it will not add any items here. If you task 1, add it, task 2, add it. You see, it's a very understandable and very clear for us, because this task was done by you in the previous lab work by JavaScript, and you can do it by the TypeScript also like this. As you can see here, we have here TypeScript, and not TypeScript, it's just a JavaScript code. Here also the JavaScript code, but the TypeScript gives us to create the variables like this with the data types and create a class like this syntaxes. Okay, let's add one more thing here, button remove. So button remove, as you can see here, I'm adding inside of the li. It means for each value should be added to button remove. So the task 1, if you add it, we have the remove for the task 1. Task 2, add it, we have the remove for the task 2, and so on. That's why I'm adding the remove button inside of li, because li was repeated for each item inside of the items. Okay, for the remove button, I want to handle the click event. So the remove item. So remove item, let's implement this function. So the remove item, what can I remove? How can I remove? I have to somehow identify which item I should remove from the list. I can send here item and get it item over here, item, and try to find inside of the items the equality of these items. But I can have more optimized version of to do the same thing by using the index. using the index, because I have here index of each element, and for removing, I'm just passing the index of that current element. And inside of the remove item, I want to get the index as a number, because it should be number. And after getting the index, I want to remove the element inside of the items by this index. To remove this index, we know about the from the JavaScript knowledge. To remove the items, we have the function called splice. We have slice button, slice function, which should be somehow the starting index and ending index will be the return of the new array. But we have here splice button, which is a little different, which will get the index as an argument, and the other number. If you pass number 2, it will remove the 2 items starting from this index. And for now, I want to remove only 1 item. That's why I want to pass here number 1. And that's it. Items splice index 1. Starting from this index, I want to remove only 1 element. It means current element. And that's it. Let's try to use it. Task 1, task 2, task 3. And let's try to remove the task 2. Task 1, task 3. And that's it. Like this, you can implement any function, any options here. What you can understand, what you have to understand is all the values that was created over here, all the variables that was created over here, and those variables that was used inside of the HTML, they have the ability to change a two-way data binding. It means inside of the your class, TS class, if you change some value, it will immediately check the correctness inside of the HTML. I mean, inside of the, for instance, ng if is message value was changed to the false or to the true, it doesn't matter. The Angular task for the Angular is to just check this if statement and try to do the appropriate execution of the variable. The same thing for other things. For instance, for add item. Add item, what does it mean? Add item just checks the display for the empty, and it will change the value of the items. What does it mean? If the items was changed, it means the new item was added to this list. It means the Angular will look for the piece of the HTML code where was used the variable items. And we found it. What here we have the items, and depending on the new added value, it will just re-render this list of the items, the list of the to-dos, and show the result of it. And that's it. Okay, for today, I think it's enough. Your task is you have to do all the prepare all the environment to install the node, install the npm packages, try to work with the TypeScript by yourself separately, compiling by yourself, and after that try to install the Angular CLI and try to create a new empty project. And you can try to do the same examples, and try to understand what is under the Angular will do for you. Try to understand event handlings and changing the NG models and so on. And your task for the lab work will be like, I think we already added it. Inside of the course notes, you can find the lab number 4. Lab number 4, in that laboratory work, you have to show the knowledge about the Angular. It means you have to create an empty project, and your project should be like a list of products. So the component should be the product item. So for instance, inside of the list of students, we have the ID, student name, and GPA. But in your product should be image, name, description, and rating. And all these products should be linked to the Amazon real products. For instance, inside of the Amazon, it doesn't matter which products. For instance, you go to the any product. So for instance, the cartridge. So this cartridge information should be displayed on your page. It doesn't matter which product. So when I'm clicking to the product, it should be redirected to the real product from the Amazon. And this information should be shown in the list for each item. So there at least must be the 10 products, which means, for instance, here I'm adding. So I created here 3 objects for the students. You have to create 10 objects for the products, for all the needed information. And what else? It said button share. Button share for each product should be implemented by clicking. The user have to redirect to the any messenger applications. It might be WhatsApp or Telegram with the link of products. Link of product to the Amazon should be passed in the share button. So an optional one, you can immediately implement the gallery of the products. So I mean, you can immediately create here 3 messages, so 3 images, and show the as minimum 3 images inside of the products. It doesn't matter in which direction it's not required. It's not critical to show in the same interface. It might be just a list of 3 images one by one in a sequence at the first time, and all other things might be in the next week. So this is your lab work for the next laboratory work on Wednesday, I think, for someone, for Saturday or for others. So the deadline will be until the Wednesday for 15, so the 15 p.m. So the 3 p.m. 15:00 as always. So let's add it. Where is, so will be so the Wednesday 15 will be the deadline. So until the Wednesday till 15 p.m. So as 3 p.m. you have to upload your code to the GitHub to pass and to try to defend your lab works on the practice. If you have any questions regarding to the installation and regarding to the Angular part, you also have to discuss it on the practice lessons. Try to understand and try to answer more questions to your teachers and get more information. Get more information about the Angular. So for now, do you have any questions, guys? So I will I will add here week number 4 separately, and the deadline will be announced there. That's why I will remove here. So any questions for now, guys?
А если вот HTML мы писали в app component, а если в индекс HTML будем писать, будет такой же эффект?
Так, индекс HTML, смотрите, индекс HTML просто он может делать те же самые знания, которые вы делали внутри, допустим, там HTML, внутри, получается, простого HTML, который вы раньше делали. Они будут, получается, точно так же работать. То есть тут мы не можем делать некие изменения, вот, допустим, вот такие же исходники, например, вот тут мы не можем, потому что месседж он не понимает, он должен понимать, что где относится. Это как он понимает? Это как раз таки делается внутри вот этого декоратора. Вот он, компонент-декоратор, связывает ваш компонент с этими 3 вещами. Получается, uproot — это ваш директив, это ваш HTML файл, это CSS файл и ваш класс. Вот те параметры, которые создаются внутри этого класса, они будут видны внутри этого же файла. А внутри индекса HTML они не будут видны. Поэтому и создаются вот такие вот изолированные компоненты, которые будут связаны между собой. Когда я тут какую-то переменную создаю, они будут видны только внутри этого же компонента. Поэтому, как они, вот видите, они highlighted другим цветом те переменные, которые мы берем из компонента. Например, вот этот number – это локальная переменная, я могу там переименовать вот так. А вот эти переменные, они будут уже, они, получается, идут от, получается, от вашего класса, вот отсюда. Поэтому они таким образом, размечиваются. Но внутри индекса HTML вы можете сделать вот простые HTML, как там, маркапы. Это просто получается HTML, если вам это нужно. В смысле, если есть необходимость, вы можете это сделать. Индекс HTML. Получается, вот эта часть, она не меняется. Вот эта часть тоже не меняется. Вот то, что между, оно будет меняться. Как мы говорили, вот в этом случае. Получается, вот верхняя и нижняя часть, она все остается, а контент меняется. Это и есть, называется single page application, потому что we have only one file here, which will just render the content of the application depending on the URL, in some cases, URL which will be discussed in the next lecture, but in some cases it will be just depending on your action. В данный момент у нас тоже получается, вот я добавляю какие-то айтемы, и там ничего не меняется, то есть не обновляется, потому что это single page application. Так, еще другие вопросы?
Если мы другие будем компоненты создавать, то мы им другой тег будем давать, да?
Да.
Например, не AppRoot.
Ну вот, например, вот вы можете, например, создать там новый компонент ng. Ну вот если вы ng Enter нажмете, он вам покажет там все возможные эти. Вот ng generate есть. ngg, там component, например, там, не знаю, home. И все. Вот для вас получается сразу для этого компонента, то есть название вашего компонента G это сокращенная версия вот этого generator. ng generate component, the name of the component should be the name, what, home. So it says inside of the source, inside of the app folder, it creates a folder called home. So the folder home contains all the necessary files for your component. As you can see, they are the same. So the app component was generated for you as the initial part. And home component, it was created by you manually. That's why we have here the same files, same structure. For instance, CSS, which is an empty file, and HTML, which is also empty and with a minimum message, and TS file. TS file says app home. It's a selector for you, which was created for you. And that's it. So here I have the home component, which was here linked to this HTML and to this CSS, and the name of the tag for this component will be the app home. And as you can see here inside of the module, it will automatically add your home component inside of the declarations. As we said before, this component was declared inside of the app model because Angular should know every new created component. And they will list it inside of the declarations here. And that's it. Inside of the app component, as you can see here, our component called home component, and the HTML part of the home component, it looks like home works or home component here, for instance. And inside of the application component, I'm putting such like a directive, like same as inside of the index HTML. Index HTML, we say that the root component should be AppRoot. AppRoot, it's our application component here. But inside of the application component, I am just rendering the other component called app home. App home goes from here. And as you can see here, home component here is works. Like this, you can create as many as possible components and connect them with each other, and render them depending on your task. Okay, questions? Eleanor, is it clear?
Залейте все на GitHub?
Yes, I will upload all the things inside of this repository. I think we have already. So here I have the web development. So here will be the so all the things will be over here. So the link to this GitHub will have inside of the general, inside of the course notes, under this link. It's already uploaded. Okay. Other questions?
Можно спросить, а как мы будем переключаться между app component и home component, чтобы начать новый HTML пустой с нуля?
Переключаться, вопрос не понял. Так, вот у нас есть home компонент, и вот у нас app компонент. Внутри app компонента я подключил home компонент. Но пока что у нас нету роутинга, то есть мы не можем, то есть я не могу открыть там новую страницу, потому что мы роут еще не делали. Но мы можем это, в принципе, тоже сделать. Там, не знаю, вот это все обернуть в какой-то div и через там одну переменную, там if else переменную, переключать между компонентами. В данный момент, так как у нас роутинга еще нет, то есть роутинга еще не объяснили, мы показываем внутри одного компонента другой компонент рендерим вот здесь.
Ну вот, например, если у нас будет новый, например, занятие, второе, мы должны заново создавать вашу, как вы создали папку демо, чтобы там все компоненты были. И заново начинать проект, или можно какие-то файлы обратно?
Вам лучше сделать все заново, то есть все с нуля. Потому что вот то, что я показываю, то, что я залил в GitHub, не нужно оттуда, получается, сделать там клон и пытаться там что-то менять. Вот, например, вот тут нету этого, да, вам нужно будет там ng-install запустить, потому что вот этой папки у всех будет это отдельно. То есть у каждого пользователя будет node modules отдельно, поэтому он не загружается сюда. И вообще, в принципе, создание нового проекта вы должны делать с нуля. Вы можете вот текущее видео посмотреть, пересмотреть и делать все с нуля.
Все понял.
So thanks. We don't have any questions, I think. So any other questions?
Извините, а какой, скажем, редактор вы рекомендуете использовать? То есть мы можем, например, использовать, то есть работать с Angular на Sublime Text?
Sublime Text можно, но я бы предпочел WebStorm. То есть я показывал, во-первых, на WebStorm на лекциях, и мне комфортнее, если компьютер позволяет, то есть ресурсы компьютера позволяют, мне бы комфортно работать внутри WebStorm. А так, в принципе, без разницы. Можно, в принципе, на ноутпаде тоже работать. Главное, чтобы она работала.
Ага, хорошо, спасибо.
Окей. Еще вопросы? Do we need to like a tutorial or we can do ourselves? Tutorial, you mean, can you answer to my question? So the tutorial, you mean about the documentation of the Angular, isn't it? Are you asking? Okay. So you can do any tutorials. So the restrictions by the tutorials, we don't have. So that's why before your lab work, you can do and you can finish any tutorial starting from the official, the Angular documentation here. Here I have the tutorial for the heroes. You can start from here and try to understand what is the key points and creating a new component. So here we have the key components and so on. So try to understand what is inside of this, starting from the, for instance, the tutorial number 1. Here we have the tutorial part number 2, selecting the list and so on. Like this. Here we have the list of heroes. In your lab work will be the list of products. And that's why you have to try to by yourself to finish the simple tutorials, the starting point of simple tutorials to finish your lab work.
Okay.
Okay. But what we will check on the lab work will be on this part. And extra tasks from you can be the finish it tutorials as you wish from any resource. It might be the official documentation tutorial or other resources. I will also add useful links to the week number 4 note here. Useful links for the Angular. I think there might be the tutorials also. So, any other questions, guys? Okay. Rollback failed option. What is this? When I try to install the... So about the installing problems, let's try to understand and try to solve it on the practice or with the practice teachers, because we don't need to, for everyone, wait for fixing the problems. So if you want, Arman, after this lecture, we'll try to solve your problem. Okay, other questions regarding to the lecture notes and what we did here? Okay, if you don't have any questions, it's time to stop today's lecture. And all your further questions you can ask from your practice lesson teachers. If in that stage you cannot get the needed answer, write to direct message via the Microsoft Teams to me, and we'll try to answer to your questions as soon as possible. Okay, thank you to everyone. Goodbye.
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 Goodbye. Thanks.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.